This
board to order.
conference will now be recorded.
Before we get started, please mute your microphone during the meeting unless you want to speak. Otherwise, background noise will interfere with the meeting. As the chair of the Tilton Select Board, due to the COVID-19/coronavirus crisis, and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically, and these reasons shall be reflected in the minutes. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that A, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone. Members of the public wishing to attend this meeting electronically may call the following conference call number at 1-866-899-4679, access code 817-026-717, followed by the pound key. B. Additional public access by video or other electronic means will be available as follows. We are using the GoToMeeting platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate remotely using your smartphone, tablet, or computer at global.gotome.me/Town of Tilton/Selectmen. This information can also be found on our website at tiltonnh.org under Meeting Schedule and Agendas, Board of Selectmen. C. We are providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting via telephone, conference, and by GoToMeeting, and instructions are provided on the Tilton Town website at tiltonnh.org and at the town kiosk. D. We are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting that a member of the public wishes to speak or be recognized during any public comment or public hearing. If you're a member of the public listening in and have questions, please write your questions down, and at the end of each agenda item, I will ask if there are any questions from the public before we move on to the next agenda item. Please state your name and address and then ask your question when called upon. E. We are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please email web@tiltonnh.org, which will be monitored during the meeting. F. We will adjourn the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, also please state whether there is anybody else in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Constantino.
Constantino, I'm here, and there's two others in the house somewhere.
Fogg.
Fog present, no one in the room, two in the house.
I am Jessamine here, and there's nobody else in the room with me. Pyra. Microphone, Eric.
How about that?
Great.
Pyra here, alone in the room, but 4 people in the house.
Thank you very much. John Scanlon.
Scanlon present and by myself.
Okay, excellent. On the lines with us is Brian Garris from Milestone, Kevin LaChapelle, and Tim Pearson will also be in on the call. Okay. We've called this meeting to discuss the fire panel bids for the new police station. You might recall that the selectmen voted. I made the motion and it was seconded by Catherine, and the motion passed on September 26th to have Mango Security be the preferred vendor and written into the design specs by the architect so that the electricians bidding on the project would contact Mango to subcontract them for fire panel services and parts. The intent was to keep all of the town's fire panel systems consistent and supported by our existing fire panel vendor. The subcontractor, Daniels Electric, got 3 bids, and Milestone brought to our attention that the Mango bid was the highest by $2,400. So, Jeannie, would you like to pick it up from here?
Sure. That was all that you just said very well is kind of what happened. I felt like since this was brought to our attention by Milestone, that the selectmen should be aware of it. I think you'll probably hear from Tim that he believes it should stay with Mango. I don't have any issue with that either. For me, and I think Kevin would say the same thing for both of us, we felt, and I think Pat too actually thought that the selectmen really should know about this, because at the end of the day, that $2,400 will come out of the contingency that would otherwise flow back to us, that Milestone had put on their contingency line. So Brian, I don't know if you want to say anything about the process or.
Yeah, just so there's clarification, the specification was written with some options in it. It was not a sole sourced for the fire alarm. So in the do right of the electricians, they did get other options. I just wanted to bring attention. I knew Mango was discussed earlier, and I have no problems going with Mango. I just wanted to let people know we're not asking for a change order or anything like that. It's just money out of the construction contingency that would be used to upgrade to that 2487 to go with Mango. And I understand the reason behind it. I just wanted people to be aware of it.
Tim, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah. So I have not seen the quotes. I was under the impression, though, that at one point talking to Scott Mango, that the I guess in his discussions with Daniels, who won the electric bid, that the panel that was in their winning quote. So I guess they had gotten quotes, but then they bid their work using someone else's, and that was a 50-point panel, and that Mango was proposing a 100-point panel. And Kevin could probably talk more about the the differences of that, but in a previous conversation, it became clear that in talking with Jeannie and Kevin, that's something that over time can cause problems, because if you add devices, and these are, it's not just, there's different devices you can add to a fire panel, but at some point you could potentially run out. And there's 39, I think 38 or 39 devices attached to the panel. So a 50-point panel would give you about 11 or so, ability to add 11 items to it, whereas a 100-point panel would give you much more. So a question arose in my mind, is this really an apples to apples comparison? Well, and I don't know, because I haven't seen the quotes. I don't know what's on them. I go back to my original discussion with the police building committee, where I had reviewed the rationale for going with Mango, and then again with the Board of Selectmen, understanding that there could be a premium to it, but what they do are what's considered the parts and smarts. So they sell the parts to the electrical contractor, and then the electrical contractor installs everything, but they do the final hookup to the panel. They do all the testing, and they do some type of certification. I think I have that somewhat correct, and Kevin and or Brian, I'm sure, could correct me if I'm wrong on that. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's who I thought we were going with, and that's who I would still recommend.
Kevin.
Oh, sorry.
Kevin.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I had some problems signing in. I'm actually on my phone. I'm not on camera or anything like that. So.
Okay, that's just fine. Could you explain to us what was the spec going in? Was it the 100 or the 50? And why is this going to be worth $2,500 to the taxpayers?
Well, I think the way that Jeannie explained it, the way that Tim explained it, I mean, that's everything that we talked about. I guess in my mind, there could be other things in this police station building that I don't think we're going to know if it would be in this same situation, but because we took the vote and the selectmen took the vote to go with Mango, I think that's why we're obviously talking about it tonight. But I guess in my mind, it's kind of a non-issue that it was voted on for a reason to go with Mango. And quite frankly, I think we should stick with Mango for all the reasons that Tim mentioned. What Tim mentioned about the 50-point panel versus the 100-point panel, in my previous life, I saw that on a daily basis with old fire panels that were put in the 80s, that, hey, we could add to that panel if it were only a little bit bigger. And I think that it's prudent for us to stick with, Mango, and because that's what they do every day. And $2,400 is short change to prepare for the future. That's really short money. I think the fact that, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Kevin, this is Brian. Just to clarify, so everybody's up to speed, the spec is written around the 50-point panel. So the other bid, which came in from Mammoth Fire Protection, did meet the spec. Mango knew, because he had some more background with the project, he knew that, or he would have preferred to put in the 100-point panel, which is why originally he was about $5,000 higher. So when this whole thing came to about, I went back to Daniels and said, something's got to be different in the panel. So he went through it with Mango, and Mango said, well, we priced the bigger panel. So that's when he adjusted his price from $5,000 to $2,487 over. And that price, I believe, is with the 50-point panel. So now he actually had priced bigger and better than the spec, which is good. I think he's looking for the future. So if you go with the $2,487, you're with Mango, but you're with the panel that meets the specifications that we bid on. I think Mango had shot over that looking forward. In thinking about what's in this building, you've got extra spots there, but that would be tied to smoke detectors, heat detectors, pull stations, that type of stuff. With the building size you have, unless you're adding an addition to it, you're probably not going to expand too much. And at that point, you could add a sub panel to it. But again, if you wanted to do the 5,000, then you could have the 100-point, and you got plenty of room. I think they designed it for a certain purpose. So the 2,487 gets you to the 50-point panel with Mango.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Well,
Okay.
if I could just say,
Hold on, Pat. You'll be first.
Thanks.
Tim, finish off.
Well, that's not my understanding that the last quote was a 50-point.
Okay.
Do you have the quotes, Brian?
No, these are third-party quotes, so they're Daniels Electric's quotes. I don't get that level of the quotes, but I got the numbers from him, and he did go back to Mango, and I can clarify that, but I know he's down to 2,487.
And that's at the 50 point?
Because
that was my impression, but I can double check it tomorrow. If it's the 100 point, then he's doing you a favor.
Yeah, I was told, in fact, I even wrote it down here. It's that it was at least 100 point.
When I talked to Daniels, he said that was the only thing he noticed, that Mango had kind of overshot the spec, which is not a bad thing. He was protecting it, but that he was going to have him reevaluate his price based on a 50 point that would match the other vendor and the spec, which is again what the design was based around.
So I just texted Scott Mango. He said it's 125 point.
Okay, that's different than I was told, but if that's what it is, then it is definitely worth the $2,400. I have no problem going with Mango. I just know with the early conversations, I wanted to be clear what we were doing.
Okay, Pat, you have questions?
First of all, I have a real issue with Tim and his involvement with this discussion in Mango, only because of the perspective and perception that in his involvement on a personal level with Scott Mango. The other thing is when we as a committee decided to go with Milestone Construction, they put out bids to different entities, whether it be electrical, whether it be construction, framing, cement, you name it, concrete. They bid on it based on what they thought the prices would be at the time, and we were told that they would make adjustments as they went along. And that's exactly what Daniels has done. They went out and got 3 bids. And Scott Mango went out and bid on something entirely different. So Daniels went out and did exactly what he was supposed to do. And he got 3 bids. And the third one of those 3 bids came in exceedingly higher than the other bid, because he took it upon himself to say, I think the town of Tilton needs something bigger and better, without the consult of us. So everybody's thinking, okay, this may be great for the town of Tilton, and this may be best for the town of Tilton down the road, and it might be the best and better thing, but no, nobody's consulted us on it. They've just bid on it. So we have to think about that.
Okay. Peter, would you like to say something?
What was the original specs, and was it what we were looking for? Was it originally 50 and we were looking for 50, or were we looking for 100 and it was bid at 50?
I believe the specification is on a 50 point panel, and that's what we were asked to bid. That's what the engineers decided they needed for 38 points in the building. A 50 point panel covered that. You had a little bit of room. I think others might have bumped up the size of the panel, anticipating the future, if not. But the engineers, I believe, had called out for the 50.
Because if we're building a 50-year building, then I would have thought we'd have a little more extra on hand than just 12, but that's just mine. Thank you.
Okay, Eric.
I guess my question would be, if this other company installs the panel, I mean, if Mango does our alarm systems overall across the town, would they still be able to do that, or is it one of these things where they don't touch other people's work?
The system that goes in would go in with a 1-year warranty.
Yeah.
And depending which brand they have, there's a list of brands in there that are acceptable. And depending on how that is, once the 1 year was up, then it would be Mango's decision if they wanted to take over the maintenance contract on it. Most of them they have preferred brands, but most of them will work with most of the brands. But that would be a Mango decision if he won the maintenance contract going forward. But the 90% of the work goes in with Daniels Electric, and then Mango sells them the panel, and then once it's all put in, then they come in and put the, like Tim had said, the smart parts and smarts. So they put in the panel, then they program it. So Daniels does quite a bit of it, but you have to buy the panel from the vendor. And then the 1-year warranty would keep you for the first year.
Do we have a price for the 50 panel from Mango?
I'd have to go back and see. I was under the impression when he dropped from 5,000 to 2487 that he had lowered it to the 50-point panel, but Tim had a different answer, so I'd have to find that out tomorrow.
Okay, Eric.
That's all I have for now.
Okay, John.
I'm going to recuse myself on that.
John, I understand you not wanting to vote on this, but you have a certain level of expertise I would like to hear about. Is it possible to work on other people's panels easily? Can that be integrated?
Well, you know, and I'll speak in generalities. Well, typically, you know, you have vendors that can't get parts from certain distributors, so they give you like an exclusive assignment for it. So if it was put in by company A, and then you wanted company B to service it and do it, they may not be able to get the parts for it. So you'd be kind of like out of luck. The other thing is it's always good to go a little extra. Each component that you add would require another point. So if you change your HVAC, you'd have some like duct smokes and things like that that you'd have to put in there. Or if you built another building for, let's say, the antenna, you know, you'd have to install some fire, you know, a pull station by the door. You'd have to install a heat detector and smoke detector. So you could very easily use up the 11. That's and then you'd be kind of like adding on to it. So in my thoughts, just like when we did with the NVR, we put in 4 cameras in a 4, you know, putting in the NVR that only handles 4 cameras, but then you'd have to replace the whole thing or, you know, switch it around in order to add. So my thoughts are it's good to have the extra and make sure that the person that you plan on having service it does have accessibility to the parts and that it's not like exclusive distribution. Does that make sense?
It does. My personal feeling is that the bid was supposed to be for 50. And I understand wanting more, and it seems like it's a really good deal, excepting this just seems like a hard time to be spending an extra $2,500. If Mango were to match the low bid for the 50-point system, I would be real good with going with Mango. But I'm like right on the fence now. Is there a motion to be made? Are there any other discussion?
I would just like to say one thing, that my interest in this is only to be sure that we have it properly installed by a company that we know and that can support it after the fact. And that was my point when we were working with the police building committee and with the selectmen. It's no skin off my nose if you choose to go with whoever they have picked. But I just want you to understand that, because I was concerned what was said earlier.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kevin.
Go ahead,
Jeannie?
Kevin.
Kevin. All right, Kevin.
Okay,
Kevin.
I'd like to speak, you know, as the chairman of the committee and on behalf of the committee. We made a promise 2.5 years ago on transparency and clarity. And the decision to bring this to you tonight, and the discussions that Tim and Jeannie and I had, was really to keep the spirit of transparency. And certainly, I just think you need to know that maybe there's other things that are going to come up during this project, but I think that you need to know that we wanted to stick with that. So it really, the decision is made by you, whether it's tonight or next week, just on the committee's behalf, out of transparency. So and you can tell, certainly you can give me marching orders any way you want, but I kind of hope that we can keep that same spirit throughout this project. And if that's not what you want, then just obviously tell me and I'll pump the brakes.
No, I think you're doing a great job over there personally. Don't pump the brakes, and we all want to work together on this. Jeannie, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Brian, I guess a couple things. First of all, if truly Mango's coming back with 100 point or 125 point, which is I think what Tim said, for $2,400 more, and I guess we need to find that out, or
Yep.
maybe it doesn't matter. But I'd be curious for Brian, because I've had a conversation with Brian, and I think Kevin too, because Kevin's had experience on these things, but because the other bidder had a lot of experience as well, and they know. I think to Tim's point is we want to make sure that whoever we pick is going to be able to service us and take care of us for the long haul. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. And so I guess I'd like to hear Brian and/or maybe Kevin, if this other vendor, which I hear is at the same level as Mango, do you feel comfortable with that? I guess I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Okay, Brian.
Yep, this is Brian. I've been actually texting with the owner of Daniels Electric while we're talking. He said the other system that Mammoth was providing is a Potter system. It's a different brand, which is compatible. But he said it's a 60 point panel. And he believes that the other price that Mango came back with was the 125. So I can double check that in the morning. I don't have the specification with me, but I can double check that. So I guess it's the new one's a 60, so it gives you a little more room in the panel. But again, if you're $2,400 off to gain a lot more room, it may be worth the investment. Plus you've got a known entity that you're used to working with. So it's really, that's why we brought it to your attention.
Kevin, do you have anything to add?
I do. And I would relate this same discussion to the discussion that we had several times about local contractors. And I would consider Scott Mango and Mango Security a local contractor. You know, they employ local people, and their children go to the local school system and, you know, quite frankly, play on that field. So I think just when you're considering which way you're going to vote, I think we've had some great discussion tonight on the points of the panel. Now we're talking about 60, not 50. That makes me feel even more comfortable. If they're talking about 60, but if Mango's coming in at 125 for $2,400 more, that's when the consideration of the local contractor comes into play. So the last point,
Jeannie?
The last point I have to make is Mammoth Fire Alarm and Mango Security work together on a regular basis. And if I'm wrong, John, please correct me, but I think that I'm right by saying that.
Actually, Mammoth we're out of Lowell, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit further. They just have different territories, pretty much.
Right.
So I wonder what I was going to ask is, do you think we could get Mango to come down to the 60 point and match that price? So we're not paying that extra $24.50, $75, whatever it is.
I can ask for whatever you direct me to do. I'm open.
Joe,
I have a motion.
Pat?
I'll make a motion. We go along with go to Mango for this fire panel for the
Can you
extra
be more
24.
specific, please?
So you're saying that the motion is to go with Mango and the 125 point box for the
Yep.
extra 2,400 and some odd dollars?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. I have a question too.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Peter?
What was the total cost? I know they're 2487 higher, but what's the bid so I can get a percentage over it?
That I don't have yet. I didn't get that breakout. I was just told that the offset of what was the difference, because he was trying to buy it out with the other brand, and I brought up the fact that we're supposed to be using Mango. So I just got the offset. It's a bid from the electrical sub. I haven't seen that.
So we don't even have a ballpark then?
Not that I've seen. No.
Okay, thank you.
I could find out.
Eric?
I'll just make a comment. Just one thing to consider is travel time. So for a company to pay, if we have to have a service done after whatever, it's probably going to be an hour and a half travel time from Lowell to Tilton, and that's not going to be cheap. I don't know. Even if you just say it's $100 an hour, you're talking $150 every time they come here, and that 24 something is going to get, that savings is going to become an expense later on, or that extra cost is going to be an expense later on after the building's open. So, I mean, keeping it local, travel time for Mango is going to be much shorter than it is from Lowell. So just keep it in that perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Constantino?
Constantino, yes.
Fog, yes.
Jessamine is a yes. Pyra?
Ira, yes.
John Scanlon?
Recuse myself.
Okay, we have 4 yeses and a recusal, and we stick with Mango. Is there any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none. Is there any questions or concerns by anybody here currently in the meeting? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Constantino?
Yes.
Fog, yes.
Jessamine, yes. Pyra?
Ira, yes.
John Scanlon?
Scanlon, yes.
That's a wrap, folks, and thank you all very much for coming. Thanks.
Thank
See you,
you.
brother.